Alright, so the first exercise going to be going over is the half kneeling hip stretch. And so basically for this exercise, you're going to be going down into almost a forward lunge position. So you're going to have one knee in front of you, bent at about a 90-degree angle. Then you're going to have your back knee behind you, also bent at around a 90-degree angle. The importance of this position is to make sure that your rear foot is either straight and lateral behind you or even outside a little bit. I like to have it just straight and in line with my body. And for this hip stretch, we're going to be leaning forward into the front leg while keeping our weight still on our rear knee that's on the ground right here. So you should feel the stretch on the hip side of the downward knee. So for this, we're going to lean forward into it while keeping a good posture, chest out, keeping your core tight throughout the whole movement. And you're just going to lean forward into it until you feel a stretch on this outside hip right here. If you get to this position and you still don't feel a stretch here, what you can do is you could raise the arm of the hip you're trying to stretch and then lean outwards away from it, and you should feel the stretch along this hip flexor. The muscles that are going to be engaged, obviously you're going to feel it in your quadriceps just like you would in a forward lunge, and then you're also going to feel it in your hip flexors on the outside. Once you're done in this position, you're going to switch sides and then repeat it on the other side. During this movement, obviously you're going to have your knee hinging and then your hip hinging because you're stretching your hip flexor, and you're also going to experience dorsiflexion up in the ankle joint up here for both of these movements. And that's going to complete the downside or the non-elevated leg hip flexor stretch. Alright, so this is my friend Matt, and the first exercise that he's going to be before me is the half kneeling hip stretch. And this one's going to be with no elevation. So all he's going to do is he's going to go down to basically a forward lunge position. So you're going to have your front knee forward at about a 90-degree angle, and then your back knee is going to be at a 90-degree as well. The only thing we change here is making sure that your foot's in line with your body, setting that there. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to lean forward into that while keeping all the weight on your back knee. So you can just start to lean forward and you should feel your hip flexing right there. And if you still don't feel it, you can keep a good posture with your chest up and then throw your left hand up and then lean outwards to your right towards me, and you should feel the hip stretch even more in that hip flexor right there. Specific cues that you can get for this is always ensuring that you're keeping your tight core and then also instructing them to throw that arm up to feel even more of a stretch if they don't feel it in the initial hip flexor stretch. And then you repeat it on the other side to make sure you're feeling it in the other hip. Alright, like I said, very similar to the first stretch we just went over. However, this one's going to have the elevated foot, which we're going to use the chair for behind us. In the gym, you could use a bench or a box or whatever elevated spot you could get your foot up onto. So what you're going to do is get your rear foot up onto the elevated position, right around where your ankle crease is. You're going to go all the way down until your knee hits the ground, keeping your front knee at a 90 degree, just like in the first one we just did. So for this one, you could either do static, where you're like the first one, you're leaning forward and feeling that stretch in the outside hip, and then also being able to use your arm as a cue to feel the stretch even more in that hip. You can also turn this into a dynamic warm-up or exercise if you want to, and for that, you're just going to stay upright position, keeping your core tight and engaged, and then keeping your chest out, and then leaning forward and moving backwards and turning into a dynamic warm-up where you're moving the whole time and feeling that stretch on the inward and outward motion of this. For the first one, I didn't mention you don't need any equipment. However, for this one, all you're going to need is an elevated position to put that rear foot up onto. Alright, here with Matt again, we're just going to repeat basically the same hip exercise or flexing stretch that we just did. However, we're going to have elevation in the back foot. So for this one, we're going to come to the chair or bench or box, whatever we're using in the gym. We're going to start by putting our rear foot up again at the crease in your ankle. Then you're going to come down to a lunge position, making sure that you have this at a 90 degrees as well. And then once you find your balance, you're going to lean forward into it the same way we did with the first stretch. And then what you're going to do is you should be feeling it in that downward hip. And then for the same way we did on the last one, you could throw your outside arm, so your right arm up, and then lean away to help feel the stretch even more in your hip flexor. Then again, like I talked about when I was explaining, you can turn this into a dynamic stretch, and then just rock back and forward while you're doing it to feel the stretch in your hip. So once you find your balance, you're in that position, core tight, chest up. You can kind of rock back and forward while keeping your chest up and your posture straight. Then you should be feeling it in that hip flexor on the outside or downward knee side. Alright, so just like the no elevation hip flexor exercise that we did earlier, there's no equipment that's going to be needed for this one. So like I said, you're going to go down into a prone position. And there's different positions based off of if you're a male or female. So since I'm a male, I'm going to be starting by showing that off. So you're going to go down to a prone position, meaning you're laying down on the ground with your stomach down. And then the placement of your thumbs are going to be at about your forehead level or about the top of your head. And then you're going to want to make sure that your hands are about shoulder width apart. You're gonna wanna make sure that you don't have any bend in your back while you're completing this exercise, that you're keeping it straight and keeping your core tight throughout the whole movement. So my hands are about shoulder width apart, thumbs at about my forehead, and all I'm gonna do is do a push-up while keeping my back straight and my core tight. So get ready, push up, no bend in the back, and then go back down to the starting position. So the scoring basically works as if a male is able to complete it with the thumbs at the forehead, that's going to be 3 points on the screening. And then if they're unable to complete it there, they can move it down to their chin and then attempt it there. If they're able to complete it there, it's 2 points, and then 1 point if they're not able to complete the movement even with the accommodation of moving their hands lower down. Same goes for females, however, the starting position for 3 points is going to be down at their chin. If they can't do it there, it's going to be 2 points down at the clavicle, and then 1 point if they're even still unable to complete it with the hand placement down at their clavicle. 0 points for male or female if they feel any pain or if they're working through an injury while performing this screening. The joints that are going to be used for this one are going to be your elbow and shoulder joints, and then the muscles that you're going to be using are your triceps, your chest, and then you're going to be engaging your core, so the core muscle as well. And again, this is scoring, so it's going to go towards the entire screening. This is just one part of it. Alrighty, for this last one, we're going to be doing the FMS trunk stability push-up. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our client go down into a prone position, meaning you're just going to lay on the ground with your stomach on the ground. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that your hands are about shoulder width apart, with your thumbs at about the top of your head, so just right there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to want to make sure that you keep your core tight while keeping your back straight, and then just come up just like you're doing a push-up all the way up. Moving on. And move your hands lower all the way down to your chin, stop there, and then now try doing the push-up. Keeping your back straight and your core tight. So they come all the way up. As you can see, his back straight, his core tight, go all the way down. So on the FMS screening, 3 points would have been given if he was able to do it with it at his forehead. However, since this is where he's completing it, this is going to be 2 points for him. 1 point if he was unable to complete it here, and then 0 if he was feeling any pain throughout the movement. Specific cues for this, obviously keeping your core tight, and then you don't want to see your back bending downward or even upwards, and then assisting you throughout the push-up, keeping a straight posture, and that's everything for today.